To the cowboys of the frontier, the rifle was king. Nothing else could match its reach or its reputation. But then came a weapon so small it looked harmless, until it started leaving bodies behind. One shot, close range, no second chances. Nobody saw it coming, and nobody could stop it. What was this mysterious pistol that killed faster than the guns twice its size? And how did it become the most feared weapon of its time? The spark behind the shot. Henry Derringer has spent 19 years as a respected but unremarkable gunsmith. His Philadelphia workshop produces government contract muskets, military pistols, and hunting rifles. Quality work that pays bills but breaks no new ground. The firearms landscape of 1825 favors long guns and full-sized pistols. Pocket weapons exist, but they're either tiny caliber toys or unwieldy miniatures of full-sized firearms. What doesn't exist yet is a weapon optimized specifically for the violence that actually happens most often. Close range, sudden encounters where drawing a holstered pistol takes too long and carrying a rifle makes no sense. Derringer begins developing what will become the Philadelphia Derringer around 1825, but the weapon doesn't enter serious production until 1852. The delay reflects extensive refinement. His innovation isn't making a small gun, it's making a small gun that maintains stopping power through careful engineering rather than brute force. The barrel length ranges from 1.5 inches to 6 inches, with most production models featuring 3-inch barrels. Caliber ranges from 36 to 44, with 41 becoming the standard. Total length rarely exceeds 6 inches. Weight 10 to 14 ounces, unloaded. The mechanical innovation centers on the back-action percussion lock. Earlier pistol designs placed the lock mechanism in front of the hammer, directly in the path of powder residue from fired percussion caps. This caused frequent failures as residue fouled the internal mechanism. Derringer's back-action design places the spring and mechanism behind the hammer, protected from fouling. This single change dramatically improves reliability, crucial for a single-shot weapon where misfires equal death. The barrels are rifled, unlike most pocket pistols of the era, which used smooth bores for easier manufacturing. Rifling provides accuracy at the 10 to 20-foot range where these weapons actually get used. German silver furniture, a copper-nickel alloy, resists corrosion better than brass or iron, important when the weapon spends days concealed against sweating bodies. Walnut stocks are checkered for secure grip despite the small size. Production records indicate Derringer manufactured approximately 15,000 pistols between full-scale production beginning around 1852 and his death in 1868. These were almost exclusively sold in matched pairs, typically priced at $15 to $25 per pair. Silver inlaid and engraved presentation models sold for significantly more. The paired weapon strategy compensated for the single-shot limitation and the era's percussion cap reliability issues. Professional users developed rituals around maintenance, firing and reloading daily to ensure powder stayed dry, testing percussion caps regularly, carrying multiple loaded weapons. What Derringer created wasn't just a product, it was a tactical philosophy made physical. That effectiveness at actual engagement distances mattered more than theoretical maximum capability. Most frontier violence happened at conversation range. His weapon was optimized for that reality rather than for the dramatic but rare long-distance duel. Crazy how something this small could change the entire frontier, right? If you love discovering details history almost forgot, go ahead and hit subscribe. You'll want to see what's coming next. The ballistics nobody expected. Conventional wisdom in 1860 held that velocity determined lethality. The new metallic cartridge revolvers were producing muzzle velocities approaching 800 feet per second. Rifle ammunition moved even faster. Faster meant more energy, deeper penetration, greater stopping power. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Then frontier surgeons started noticing a pattern that contradicted the theory. Dr. Samuel Harkness, practicing in Sacramento during the 1850s, kept detailed records of gunshot wounds treated in his practice. In an 1859 letter to the Philadelphia Medical Examiner, he noted that wounds from Derringer pistols showed disproportionate internal trauma relative to the modest velocity of the projectile. Patients shot with high-velocity rifle rounds often survived if the bullet missed major organs. Patients shot at close range with Derringers died from wounds that looked survivable based on entrance hole size alone. The physics explain the paradox. A .41 caliber lead ball weighing 130 grains, propelled by 13 grains of black powder, exits the barrel at approximately 425 feet per second. This produces roughly 52 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, less than half what a modern .45 ACP generates. However, at close range, that slow-moving ball behaves differently than faster projectiles. High-velocity rounds often pass through bodies, depositing only a fraction of their energy in tissue. The Derringer's slow, heavy ball lacks the velocity for through-and-through wounds. Instead, it dumps its entire energy load into the target. Modern ballistic testing validates the frontier doctor's observations. Recent testing by firearms writer Holt Bodenson showed 41 short rimfire ammunition producing muzzle velocities of 621 feet per second and 111 foot-pounds of energy, significantly higher than the older published figures of 425 feet per second and 52 foot-pounds. Both figures likely reflect variations in powder charges and ammunition quality across different manufacturers and time periods. The wound ballistics are even more revealing. Testing against gelatin blocks shows penetration depths of 12 inches with the original loads, exactly matching the FBI's modern minimum standard for effective defensive ammunition. But the permanent wound cavity tells the real story. That large diameter, relatively slow projectile creates tissue damage through crushing rather than temporary cavitation. At distances under 10 feet, the ball often tumbles after impact, increasing the wound channel size dramatically. Bone strikes produce secondary projectile effects as fragments scatter through tissue the original bullet never directly contacted. The ballistic limitations were equally real. Beyond 25 feet, accuracy degraded rapidly. The relatively low velocity meant significant bullet drop. Wind deflection became a major factor. The tumbling that made the bullet devastating at close range made it essentially random at distance. One observer noted that on calm days with good light, you could actually see the ball in flight beyond 30 feet, a testament to its slow speed and the eye's ability to track objects moving under 600 feet per second. This created a weapon with a brutally honest, effective range. 0 to 20 feet for reliable accuracy, 0 to 10 feet for maximum lethality. Users adapted their tactics accordingly. They didn't fight from distance. They closed to conversational range before presenting the weapon. The California evidence. San Francisco, 1850 through 1870. The city grows from gold rush boom town to major metropolis, and the Barbary Coast district becomes infamous for concentrated violence. Contemporary newspaper accounts provide detailed documentation of how Derringers functioned in actual use. The Alta California, San Francisco Chronicle, and other papers report gunfight details with surprising specificity, often including weapon types, distances, wound locations, and outcomes. December 18, 1854. The Alta California reports a gambling dispute at the El Dorado Saloon. Two men seated across a faro table, approximately 4 feet apart. Witness accounts describe a verbal argument over suspected cheating that escalated in seconds. One man produced a Navy Colt from his belt. Witnesses estimated the draw took approximately 1 second from initial motion to hammer back position. His opponent pulled a Derringer from his vest pocket and fired before the Colt cleared leather. Single shot to the chest. The victim died within minutes. The paper notes the winner had no need to draw in the conventional sense, as the pocket pistol was already in hand beneath the table edge. Stagecoach robberies produced different data. Wells Fargo began arming messengers with shotguns in 1852, but passengers remained largely responsible for their own protection. Female passengers particularly favored Derringers. because the weapons concealed easily in hand muffs or reticules. Between 1855 and 1865, at least 8 documented cases exist of female passengers using derringers to disrupt robberies. The pattern: bandits searched male passengers thoroughly, but often gave female passengers cursory searches or ignored them entirely. Several robberies ended when women produced concealed weapons and fired at point-blank range. The July 1857 robbery near Placerville provides detailed documentation. 3 armed bandits stopped a stage carrying 7 passengers, 5 men and 2 women. After collecting valuables from the male passengers, one bandit approached a woman demanding her jewelry. She produced a derringer from her muff and fired from approximately 3 feet. The round struck the bandit in the throat. He died at the scene. The remaining bandits fled. The Sacramento Union interviewed the woman afterward. She stated she'd purchased the matched pair of derringers in San Francisco for $18 and practiced firing them weekly at targets in her yard. It never occurred to them that a woman might be armed, she told the reporter. That assumption cost one of them his life. This tactical advantage, being underestimated and overlooked, became a recurring theme. The derringer worked not just because of its mechanical capabilities, but because of social assumptions about who carried serious weapons and what serious weapons looked like. The counterfeiting wars. Henry Derringer never patented his pistol design. This proved financially catastrophic. By the mid-1850s, competitors nationwide were producing nearly identical copies. Some simply made similar weapons and sold them as pocket pistols. Others went further, directly copying Derringer's proof marks, trademark stamps, and even his signature barrel address, Derringer Philadelphia. The counterfeiting problem became so severe that Derringer spent much of his final 2 decades fighting legal battles. The most significant case, Derringer versus Plate, reached the California Supreme Court in 1863. A J. Plate, one of Derringer's own California distributors, had been selling pistols made by other manufacturers while representing them as genuine derringers. The court ruled in Derringer's favor, establishing important precedent in American trademark law regarding false markings and consumer confusion. But the legal victories did little to stop the flood of copies. Philadelphia alone had at least 15 manufacturers producing Derringer-style pistols by 1860. Quality varied enormously. Some counterfeiters produced weapons equal or superior to Derringer's originals. Others made dangerous trash that failed catastrophically or injured the shooter. The proliferation of poor quality copies damaged Derringer's reputation. Users had no way to distinguish genuine articles from counterfeit junk, and failures of counterfeit weapons were attributed to Derringer's design, rather than the counterfeiter's shoddy manufacturing. Derringer died in 1868, having never profited fully from his innovation. His estate sold the remaining business assets and existing inventory. The trademark and name had by then become generic, used by everyone and owned by no one. Ford's Theater, April 14, 1865. The most famous Derringer use was also one of the most historically consequential. John Wilkes Booth carried an authentic Philadelphia Derringer made by Henry Derringer, not a counterfeit, when he entered the presidential box at Ford's Theater on April 14, 1865. The weapon was a standard production model with a 2.5-inch barrel, .44 caliber, loaded that morning with a single ball and percussion cap. The security arrangements around President Lincoln that night seem incomprehensible by modern standards. John Parker, the assigned bodyguard, left his post outside the presidential box to watch the play from a better seat and later went to a nearby tavern. Booth, a famous actor known to theater staff, entered the theater without challenge and approached the presidential box during the 3rd act. He barred the outer door from inside using a wooden stick, then opened the inner door to the box itself. The distance from Booth's position to Lincoln's head was approximately 2 feet. At 10:15 p.m., Booth fired. The ball entered behind Lincoln's left ear, traveled diagonally upward through the brain, and lodged behind the right eye. Lincoln slumped forward, unconscious. He never woke. Doctors carried him to a boarding house across the street where he died at 7:22 a.m. on April 15th. The autopsy, performed by Army Surgeon General Joseph Barnes, documented massive brain trauma. The ball's path destroyed critical brain structures. Modern neurosurgeons reviewing the autopsy reports confirmed the wound was immediately fatal. Lincoln had no chance of survival, given 1865 medical capabilities. The relatively low velocity was irrelevant at contact distance. A .44 caliber ball at any speed does catastrophic damage to brain tissue. The weapon itself became evidence. Booth dropped it while escaping, and it was recovered from the presidential box. The Derringer remains in the Ford's Theater Museum collection, extensively documented and authenticated. Forensic examination confirms it's an authentic Henry Derringer product based on proof marks, barrel address, construction details, and metallurgical analysis. Interestingly, the rifling has a left-hand twist, counterclockwise, rather than the more common right-hand twist. This unusual feature appears in some Derringer production, but is relatively rare. The newspaper's consistent misspelling, Derringer with 2 R's, became standard American usage. What had been a proper name became a generic term, and the misspelling became the accepted spelling for the weapon category. The metallic cartridge revolution. The percussion cap era ended rapidly after the Civil War. Metallic cartridges offered massive advantages: weatherproofing, faster reload, more consistent performance, easier carrying of spare ammunition. In 1863, even before the war ended, the National Arms Company introduced the first cartridge-firing pocket pistol, chambered for the .41 short rimfire cartridge. These early cartridge Derringers maintained the same tactical principles as percussion models, but solved many practical problems. Daniel Moore patented the design, a single-shot pistol with a barrel that pivoted sideways for loading. Brass cartridges didn't require separate caps, powder, and balls. Reloading took seconds rather than minutes. Most critically, cartridges were weatherproof. The damp percussion caps that caused so many misfires became irrelevant. Remington Arms entered the market in 1866 with the Model 95, featuring an innovative over-under double-barrel design. 2 barrels stacked vertically. A cam on the hammer alternated between upper and lower barrels. First shot fired the top barrel, second shot fired the bottom. Both barrels pivoted upward for simultaneous loading. This doubled firepower while maintaining compact size. The Model 95 became extraordinarily successful. Production continued until 1935. 69 continuous years. Total production exceeded 150,000 units. The Sharps Rifle Company produced 4-barrel pepperbox Derringers between 1859 and 1874. These featured 4 barrels in a rotating cluster with a revolving firing pin. Chamberings included 22, 30, and 32 rimfire. Production ended with Christian Sharps's death in 1874, but thousands remained in circulation for decades. And perhaps most importantly, understand that the Derringer was a specialist's tool for specific situations, not a general-purpose weapon for all occasions. The range contradiction. The irony of frontier firearms becomes clear when examining actual violence patterns versus popular mythology. The Winchester model. 1873, the gun that won the West could effectively engage targets at 300 yards in skilled hands. Sharps rifles could reach even further. The Colt single-action army remained accurate and powerful to 75 yards or more. These capabilities defined Western firearms in popular imagination. But examining coroners' reports and contemporary accounts reveals a different reality. Most gunfights occurred at distances under 20 feet. Sacramento County coroner's records from 1860 to 1870 show average shooting distance in fatal encounters, 14 feet. Dodge City. Kansas records from 1875 to 1885, 12 feet average. Tombstone, Arizona Territory, records from 1880 to 1885, 9 feet average. The famous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone on October 26, 1881, lasted approximately 30 seconds, with combatants at distances of 6 to 12 feet. The Wild Bill Hickok Davis Touch shootout in Springfield, Missouri on July 21, 1865, One of the few actual face-to-face duels documented with reliability occurred at approximately 75 yards and is famous precisely because such long-range encounters were extremely rare. Most frontier violence happened in saloons, boarding houses, gambling halls, brothels, and narrow streets where physical space limited engagement distances. In these environments, a 39-inch Winchester rifle became a liability, difficult to maneuver, requiring two-handed operation, needing space to work the lever action long enough to be grabbed by an opponent. A full-sized Colt revolver worked better, but still required a draw from leather, precious fractions of seconds where death and survival hung in balance. Modern military doctrine eventually caught up with this reality. Close quarters battle training acknowledges that rifles have minimum engagement distances just as they have maximum ranges. Special operations forces choosing shorter weapons for urban environments. The eternal tactical principle: weapons should match the actual mission, not the imagined one. The legacy that won't die. Henry Derringer died in 1868. Remington stopped producing the Model 95 in 1935. Colt ended Derringer production decades earlier. Yet the weapon category persists into the 21st century, with multiple manufacturers offering modern versions. The Derringer's influence lives in every pocket pistol and backup gun ever made. The C-Camp 25 ACP and 32 ACP palm-sized semi-automatics, designed specifically for deep concealment. The Keltec P332 and P3AT pocket 9mm pistols, weighing under 7 ounces. The Ruger LCP and Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380, modern defensive pistols designed for the same role Derringers filled. Last-ditch protection, carried continuously because they're small and light enough to actually have when needed. Law enforcement backup guns trace directly to Derringer principles. The traditional ankle holster carrying a snub-nose revolver or compact semi-automatic, that's the same backup doctrine Dallas Staudenmeier and Bat Masterson practiced in 1880. Plainclothes detectives carrying concealed pistols. Same accessibility advantage Derringers provided. Modern concealed carry permits and the entire cultural debate between open carry and concealed trace back to arguments that started when Derringers first appeared. Modern ballistic science has vindicated many of Derringer's design choices. FBI ammunition testing standards recognize that penetration depth matters more than velocity alone. Wound ballistics research confirms that energy dump into the target proves more effective than through-and-through penetration in many defensive scenarios. Large diameter, moderate velocity projectiles create more tissue disruption than small diameter, high velocity ones at close range. Every modern hollow point design that sacrifices velocity for expansion and energy transfer channels, the same principles Derringer's .41 caliber ball demonstrated empirically. The philosophical legacy may be most important. Appropriate capability beats maximum capability. A weapon you actually carry beats a more powerful one you leave home. Concealment provides tactical advantage. Single shot forces precision. Close range optimization beats general purpose compromise. These principles, proven through decades of frontier violence, now appear in every concealed carry course and tactical doctrine manual. The Derringer proved that in the West, size didn't decide survival. Speed, precision, and nerve did. If you enjoy uncovering stories that turn old legends upside down, make sure you're subscribed. There are plenty more weapons and moments history tried to forget.